Welcome to All Things Greater Burlington, where you will hear from the movers, shakers, and changemakers that are moving Greater Burlington forward. Here is your host, Steven Brody.
Welcome to All Things Greater Burlington. It's a pleasure to have with us today Chase Gibb, and we're glad to have Chase here. He's a very busy individual involved in a lot of different ventures in Burlington, but just a wonderful corporate citizen to helping out in different areas. And so I wanted to bring him in and share his story and a lot of the things that is involved in his everyday life. So Chase, thank you so much for making time to be with us today.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me down here.
Now, I think most folks would know you on the restaurant side, and so I guess why don't we get started with that? What came first? I see down here, obviously, a owner of the Buffalo 61 Bar and Grill, Buffalo Tavern, and then also Fork Catering Company. Was there one in particular? What got you started going in that arena?
Well, I was working as a bartender at the Buffalo Tavern back when I think I was like 28 years old. So it's been a few years. And at that time, Brody Nafee owned the Buffalo. Brody was a good guy for me to learn a lot of stuff from up there. And he was a little bit different. He was a character. Anybody who knows him would say that about him. But long story short, Rudy, I think, was 87 years old, and he was ready. Now, I don't know if he was ready to sell the tavern, but it was nearing that time. And I definitely had been putting in a lot of hard work up there trying to build the clientele and so on as essentially the bar manager. And I just had an opportunity to purchase it. Rudy knew that I was interested in purchasing the tavern from him. So we sat down and had a conversation. It was like the fifth time we had this conversation. It took years to make this happen with him. But we did it, and he was finally ready to sell it. So we worked out an arrangement. It's tough being a first time business owner on something like that. You can't just go to the bank and say, I want to open up a restaurant, give me a loan. So with Rudy, we sat down, we worked out an owner financing agreement, and we put that together and we made it happen. And it was kind of funny. I sat down, I budgeted everything out, and I budgeted the tavern to where I had a 5-year balloon payment on it. Ooh. And I wrote a check and paid it off in full in 4 years. Lived pretty lean for those 4 years, but it worked out for us. So the tavern was first, and
okay. Had that always been a desire of you, Chase, to be a business owner?
I don't know. To be honest, I was younger. I did well in school. I went to college. I went to SCC. I liked college. I loved math. I loved algebra. I'm a numbers person.
Wow. Okay.
But I didn't like having to take electives of courses that were never going to apply to anything that I was going to do in my life. So I enjoyed a little bit of college. I didn't enjoy a lot of college. Sure. So I didn't. So I ended up not finishing. I think I enrolled 5-6 times. I don't know. I always thought I was going to do it, but it never happened.
Yeah,
so kind of just bounced around. And once I was about 30 years old, I realized I felt like I wanted to be in a little bit more control of my own time. I gained some independence. So what a worse way to gain independence than working for yourself.
Sure.
In the beginning, it's not that bad, but in the beginning it was a lot of work, a lot of hours. So I think after a while I just felt like, I was doing all of this work and putting all this effort in, and I realized I was pretty good at what I was doing.
Yeah.
So why not do it for myself instead of somebody else?
Sure. And did anybody motivate you into doing this, or was it just your time at the Buffalo Tavern? You just thought, hey, you know what? I could do this.
You know, at that time, I don't know that there was anybody really motivating me into doing it except for myself, you know, just thinking that was something. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to college. I wanted to go to school for business management like everybody else does.
Sure.
But I didn't know what I was going to do with that.
Uh-huh.
So I think that it really, you know, it really hit me that I wanted to work for myself.
Yeah. So you became a business owner, and then how'd your worldview change from now being in charge of a business, and now you were responsible for, you know, keeping the doors open?
Well, we're going to turn this into about a 6-hour podcast. We're going to ask that. How did my worldview change? Well, the first thing I would say is, you know, I was young and naive, a lot different I thought a lot different than I do now. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I wish I still thought like I did then. Yeah, sometimes I overanalyze things a little bit. But I definitely learned things cost money. It costs money to operate a business. You don't make money every single month. Like it's how it goes. You have bills, and it's just like paying your bills at home, except it's a business. And you realize really fast that when you're operating a small business, you can't just go spend everything you make. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so I guess, you know, I really learned about taxes. You know, where all of our money goes. The sales tax has got to be paid every month. You got to pay your employee taxes. You know, you really learn about licensing through the different governmental agencies that you have to deal with. So there's a lot of pieces involved that people don't realize when they jump into this, and me included. That's why I'm saying this.
Yeah.
And you have to be organized, ready to go. You know, I've had a million blunders, and I'll be the first to share those blunders with people. You know, it doesn't bother me, but you know, everything from when you fill out a liquor license to make sure that you're putting the right Roman numerals in there. You know, everything has to be very detailed and very organized. So
yeah,
I learned real fast, not to necessarily pinch pennies, but you really have to be intentional with all of your spending and all of your dollars going in and out the door.
Yeah. Were there any hurdles or any times along the way when you were first starting where like, oh my gosh, I got in over my head? Or did you always feel like I could weather this? Whatever little challenge came my way, yeah, I can do this. I'm glad I made this decision.
I always felt like I could do the job. You know, that I guess that never, I never felt nervous or scared, but there were definitely times where I thought, boy, this isn't what I thought it was going to be right out of the gate. But then that was also, again, me being young and naive. And then you step back, you read books, you do a lot of reading online, and then you realize, actually, I'm not that bad at this. Maybe I am doing the right things, and I'm just being too hard on myself.
Yeah.
You know, so there was definitely a few times where I had to kind of step back and refresh a little bit, and then start moving forward.
Well, that's good. It's a good testimony of perseverance and sticking with it. So you're with Buffalo Tavern, and congratulations again. You took care of the balloon payment in 4 years and instead of 5. So at what point did you think, okay, I want to expand and go into something else? So what was next? Was it the Buffalo 61?
Yep. So I had thought about expanding and doing more for a while, and then the opportunity came available to purchased the building in Fort Madison, and I jumped on that, and it's worked out well.
Yeah.
We went in and we did a full renovation on that within, I think it was 28 days from the time that we closed till the time that I had the building reopened and operational. So that was a stressful 28 days thinking back on that. I mean, it seems like forever ago now, but man, going through that was that was pretty nerve-wracking. But so I opened up Buffalo 61, and then and things have always went well down there also.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I opened up Cole House out on Roosevelt, and I had that out there for a while.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I opened up.
You had Buffalo 67 also,
yes,
didn't you?
Yes. So this is where things started to get pretty crazy. This was all around COVID.
Okay.
So things were getting weird. We were working really hard to try to keep everything operational, keep giving staff, trying to take care of the staff more than anything.
Yeah.
And keep everybody that wanted to work working. There were some people that were like, "No, we'll sit back. We don't want to work right now." But the people who wanted to be there, I tried to take care of. So in the middle of COVID, I realized that there was an opportunity for we were doing quite a bit of catering offsite. So we realized that there was an opportunity there with the catering business, and I started Fork Catering Company at that time.
Yeah.
And Fork Catering it took off. It took off fast. It definitely was more than I anticipated, which was good. But I think at the same time, because of that taking off like it did, it definitely made it tougher for me to try to be involved in 4 restaurants. 3 of them open, another one getting ready to open, which was delayed substantially because of just getting parts during COVID. Steel beams were taking forever to get in. We did a lot of repairs over there.
Yeah.
So I kind of took a step back at one point, and I thought, I think I would be best served if I had the Buffalo 61, and Fork Catering.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting spread a little more thin than I want to be.
Yeah.
And remember, going back, I said that the whole point in being in business for yourself was to try to create a little bit of independence there. And I didn't have that at that time. They always say either you run the business or the business runs you. And at that time, I was being ran, and it was too much. And, looking back on it, I definitely I should have structured things a little bit different if I was going. You can't do that much and not put a good team around yourself. And I had good pieces around me, but I didn't put enough pieces in place at that time. And looking back on it, I'm okay with it because now,
You've learned.
I've learned, and with Cole House, we learned what works best for us is not having the restaurant there. What works best for us is having the mobile pizza ovens out and about. So I learned there. It took a long way took the long route to get there.
Yeah.
Buffalo 67 over in Monmouth. That has, even though I'm not operating a restaurant over there, I do still own that building, and it's being leased out from me by the. They're buying it from me.
It's called El Toro, isn't it?
Yeah, there's the same people from here in Burlington that own El Toro here. They operate that one over there too.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, they're the nicest people. They've done really good over there. They do really good here. I visit there pretty regularly. I really like them out there, and the Isabel and her husband, and then they've got server / manager out there named Octavio, and I go in and I harass those guys all the time, but they're good people. So even though I don't have a restaurant there anymore, it's worked out well. And even for me, it's probably not something that's super lucrative selling them that building because I know what I put into it. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of it, I grew up over in that area. So if we put a little bit of life into that building and they've got a nice restaurant in town over there for everybody to enjoy now,
right?
That's good enough for me to be happy with it.
When you had all those properties, in businesses, I think you touched upon it already, Chase. Were you hands-on on all of those, or did you have somebody that you designated as the person to oversee this location and this location and this location?
I had general managers at each location.
Yeah.
I'm still very hands-on though. But that's something where I go back to learning, and something we can touch on a little bit later in the podcast is how I'm structuring all this now. At that time, yes, I was very hands-on. I was too hands-on because I just couldn't step away, or it just felt like I was always putting out a fire. Mm-hmm. And I feel like as an owner and an operator that you should take part in the business and be there. However, the stuff that I was doing on day-to-day was too operational. It wasn't more about moving forward.
I got you.
And trying to grow. I was there. I wasn't there to do that. It was too much of me doing stuff that other people were able to do, but I was probably stepping on their toes a little bit.
Well, it speaks volumes for you to be able to reflect back as well and to recognize and say, okay, this is what happened then, and this is how I can retool and how I can do things now. Now, I have to say, and I guess the obvious question to pose is, how is it that you think you've been able to be successful in the food service / restaurant industry? Because I think a lot of people will say that's one of the toughest businesses to get into. A lot of people want to open up restaurants and a lot don't make it. And you've, for lack of a better term, you've been successful in this. And so is there anything you can put your finger on to kind of figure out why?
I have a lot of good people around me. That's why. I just had a meeting this morning with one of my managers from up at the tavern, and she came in and we just sat down and talked for half an hour this morning. Brandy, that works for me up there, and she does a great job for me up there. And somebody like her, Shayla, Mackenzie, that are up at the tavern that everybody knows, they've been with me for some of them 10, 12 years. So I don't think it has anything to do with, I don't think it really has as much to do with me as it does about putting the right people around you. Okay. And whenever we put our mind to something, to do something, we're going to figure out a way to do it. Mm-hmm. We definitely are, I don't want to say aggressive, but we can definitely persevere through anything. And when we want to make something happen, we're going to figure out a way to make it happen. And the fact that we don't give up, I think as cliche as that sounds, we don't. We figure out a way through it. We figure out a way through COVID. And that was not fun to deal with. We figured that out. We, at the Cole House when Cole House closed, I found anybody who wanted to stay on, we found a position for them. I still have people from Cole House working for me right now.
Yeah.
So we're always putting our heads down. We're moving forward. There's a book called The Obstacle is the Way. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not, but it's probably my favorite book that I've ever read. And it's about stoicism. And, the obstacle is the way. You have an obstacle in front of you, you get through it, you keep moving. You get through it, you keep moving.
Yeah.
And that's how you don't get emotional. you just put your head down and you keep going. And that's really how I operate internally inside of me.
Yeah. Because of COVID and being past it now, did it take a while to get over the COVID hump? Would you say you're past the COVID hump now? And no.
No, the restaurant business is completely different now.
Okay.
And I don't think it's a hump. I think it's just how it is now. Our carry-out business has increased substantially. We still have dine-in, but the amount of carry-out is quite a few percentage points higher than it used to be.
Okay.
So, it's definitely a different atmosphere now when it comes to, you got to take care of the carry-out orders or the catering just as much as you do as the people dining in, because people come in, and whether they're dining in or they're carrying out, they're spending their hard-earned money with you. So you have to take care of them. That's always been my thought, is if someone's going to do me the favor of coming into our establishment and choosing our establishment as a place to spend their money and come in, then we're going to give them a nice place with a good atmosphere where they can come in, feel safe, relax, and enjoy time with family and friends. And we still try to provide that, but we're also providing that for people taking food home, spending time with family at home. They're on the go. People have got kids games going on. We're traveling everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different now. And I just anticipate that it's probably going to stay this way, and we're okay with it. We don't mind.
Supply chain issues, are they still around, or have you gotten past that? They're not as bad as they were a year ago. We're starting to see food prices normalize a little bit, but there's still some stuff that I think that has normalized, and I just can't convince myself that it's normalized because it's more expensive now with inflation. But no, for the supply chain issues, no, we're sitting pretty good there. The struggle that I find now is whenever we have a third party coming into the building, whether it's a food delivery service or repairing an air conditioner, it seems to be that the supply issue they have is supply of employees to help them complete those tasks. But that's everywhere now. And it's something, again, we're lucky. We have a great staff. We don't really have any staffing issues right now. Yeah.
For us. I know a lot of other people do, but that's the one struggle that we have seen.
Not to give away any secrets, but where do you do the catering business out of? Is that a separate standalone location versus the other restaurants?
It can vary depending on where the catering's at.
Okay.
The kitchen at the restaurant in Fort Madison is about 2,500 square feet. It has a full line devoted just to food prep and catering prep on the back.
Okay.
That has its own cooking equipment. So we can do a lot of prep there. If it's a smaller catering, we can do it out of the Burlington location. That's not a problem.
Okay.
We have a lot of nice equipment that I've spent a fair amount of capital on.
Yeah.
And I believe in buying the right equipment to do the job right. So in transporting food for a catering, we do a lot of caterings all the way over in Galesburg, and we can transport food, no issues. And it stays just as hot, but it's all about investing back into your business. Also.
So what do you have in the vehicle? I mean, that's just a curiosity question. What do you have to equip your vehicle with to keep all the food warm for the
Cambros? So you have Cambros that have battery packs that can heat, they can cool. They're not cheap. Depending on what it is, a lot of times I have some nice warmers. They stand about 6 foot tall and weigh about 300 pounds. If we know that we're having a large catering like we did a week and a half ago, we did a large catering for 700 people. We fed them all prime rib and chicken.
Oh.
So I was on site 3 days ahead of time delivering the warmers there so that when we got the food there, it went straight into the warmers. And then it holds them at temp, but not cooking to make sure the food stays right where you want it. Prime rib's tough because you want to keep it medium rare. You don't want to get it up over that. So you got to make sure that you have those warmers set right where you want them.
Yeah.
So we have that. We are generally really good about preparation. So we try to get into the venue where we're going to be doing a catering a day ahead of time and get everything in there ready to go so that when we do show up with the food, again, we're keeping it as close to the serving time as we can, along with making sure that there's not a whole lot of extra work that has to be done when we get there.
Yeah.
So I don't like food sitting around for 4 hours.
Right.
You know, you don't want food that's been sitting around for 4 hours. So we time it pretty close.
Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask the significance of the Buffalo name.
You know, I don't know. I've always heard stories. So
So this predates you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this goes back to like 1930. So the bar was built in the year 1900 from all the research that I've done. I believe that in the late 30s, it's kind of funny because during Prohibition, the Buffalo existed. There was always stories of booze being delivered in the alley behind the Buffalo, and I don't remember who, but there was a lady that used to come up there that said her grandpa lived in the alley, and they'd deliver the booze to the Buffalo during Prohibition, and they would leave a bottle of booze in the bushes for her grandpa so that her grandpa would be content and wouldn't say anything about it.
Okay.
So then after that, there was a gentleman who owned the Buffalo. I have some old postcards of him that I think... I can't remember if it was maybe Juanita Kirby or Teresa Houston. I feel like one of them ladies brought me some postcards. But there was a guy that owned it named Julian Birch. And Julian, from what I've been able to find out about him, he lived in the apartment above the Buffalo. He never left. He had everything delivered there. He died on the front lawn. They said he fell over and died right there along the road. I don't know. Must have had a heart attack or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But supposedly Julian Birch named it the Buffalo. This is what Rudy always told me.
Yeah.
Rudy always told me that Julian named it the Buffalo because you could come in and get a beer for a Buffalo nickel.
Oh.
Now,
okay.
I don't know how truthful that is because I've also been told by other people that wasn't true, that Julian Birch named it the Buffalo just because he liked Buffalo.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, but
you've kept that name.
Yeah. Yep. So it's
in
always
your other ventures. You've kept Buffalo.
Yeah. It kind of stuck with it. So it was always the Buffalo, except during the 80s. During the 80s, it was called the Night Twain. And then Rudy had leased it out to a guy that had changed the name to the Night Twain during the 80s. Then the Night Twain moved to a different part of town, and Rudy took it back over. And he, knowing Rudy, it's probably cheaper just to put the Buffalo slab back up there on the lights. So that's probably why he went back to that name, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
That went back to the Buffalo, and I don't see any reason to change it. So
Yeah.
I just stuck with it.
I would think most people would think that you'd be content with just doing the restaurant and the catering, but you're very diverse. You've branched out into other things with real estate and actually with self-storage. Is that, why? Are you just felt a need to to broaden yourself even more?
The reason why is, I guess, that's a good question. So right now, I do own a pretty substantial amount of rentals and self-storage. The reason I like those is because someday I'm not going to have the energy to run restaurants and a catering business anymore. And I don't, I guess in real estate, it's a little bit more passive. And I like owning property that I like owning affordable housing. Okay. So you hear people say that we have a lack of affordable housing. What they're saying is, we lack affordable housing for people who are working at a local factory or whatever, who need somewhere to live. So I do like owning that property. It is nice to be able to provide that back to the community, take care of it, and see your property gain value over time, while also providing a good, safe product to the people who rent that property from you. Mm-hmm. But for me, I guess it's about creating something so that when I'm nearing the end of my restaurant career down the road, it's not anytime soon. I've heard that, but it's not anytime soon. But when that happens down the road, I have to have some sort of income at that time. And I also want to really create some independence for myself and be able to travel and do stuff. And one way to do that is by owning real estate.
Sure.
And having property managers who manage everything, so that, again, it's like we talked about earlier, setting up that core group so that I am able to get away and enjoy life a little bit.
Well, I would love to continue on, but we are unfortunately out of time. It goes by so fast. But, again, thank you for coming in and sharing everything that's going on with you and staying busy, staying occupied, and providing the services that you do to the community. We really appreciate it, and continued success and everything, because you seem to have I don't want to necessarily say the Midas touch, but it seems like you've done pretty well in what you've delved into, keeping things going.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And like I said, I don't think I have the Midas touch. I think it's the people that are around me that do a lot of the work, that are, every day getting done what has to be done. And, it's more about just empowering them and not micromanaging and letting them do what they want to do. So again, I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chase. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you listen to All Things Greater Burlington, and give us a call at the Greater Burlington Partnership if you have ideas on a future guest. Until then, we'll see you next time on All Things Greater Burlington.
Have been listening to All Things Greater Burlington with Steven Brody. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to catch all new episodes. To learn more about All Things Greater Burlington, visit greaterburlington.com/ATGB.